It's a foregone conclusion. UCLA is going to get 3 wins. They're going to suck and they can't do anything, right? Or can Eric Bieniemy, Ethan Garbers, and the UCLA offense have something to say about a potential 7 to 8 win season?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Create an account, download the app, and you can get $20 off your first purchase using the code LOCKEDONCollege on your first purchase. Terms apply. What we're talking about today is it's a foregone conclusion, right? The UCLA team this year is going to be led offensively rather than they were defensively. Well, you would think leaning into the Chip Kelly era, that's how it's been. But in a more stunning reversal, a twist of fate of sorts, UCLA had a bowling season, had a good season last year. I know there were some very frustrating moments, but the brightest moments were the defense. In 2024, with Akika Malloy using transfers, limited use guys, it's going to be the defense, and Akika Malloy is going to have to be creative with a D'Anton Lynn philosophy. While UCLA has Eric Bieniemy leading the charge with a veteran quarterback, trying to surprise a Big Ten team, because the staple of the Big Ten Conference, physicality, strong defenses. Iowa can't beat you scoring the football, but they can beat you because they won't let you score any points. That was the joke in recent years. Penn State, an even greater version of that because they couldn't do anything against Michigan. And what did Michigan have to do? All they had to do was run the football against the team in Penn State, and they beat them, right? So the idea is physicality and overall big-time defense is going to win. Then why did Washington State find ways to beat Wisconsin, right? Why did the most recent Ohio State-Oregon matchup go to Oregon? Why did, and the list goes on and on. Okay, and now that's not everything. Those are old Pac-12 teams or current Pac-12 teams going into a new Big Ten era, conference realignment era. But UCLA last year, if you look at total offensive numbers, I believe if you go and contrast, 24/7 Sports put this up, UCLA would have been the 5th best in an 18-team conference if you go by year-to-year models in offense. Would have been the 5th best team in offense. And with the eye test, you look at UCLA, and that was a pretty poor offensive showing last year for UCLA and a Chip Kelly offense. Not the biggest and beefiest up front, couldn't really control the line of scrimmage, still found ways to run the football, had freshman quarterback mistakes, had veterans still being a little shaky, had quarterback injuries, not a lot of depth, it seemed like, because they were trying to figure out which running back to use, but by the time the season came in and came to an end, clear top 10 running back, top end running back, top end quarterback. You've got a talented receiving group that looks even better than last year with almost the same group, healthier, and a transfer or two with some incoming freshmen. And then you've got a tight end and Matsudaw ready to break out, right? So this is a team where, stacked against the numbers, I think UCLA could make some noise. Now, is it 7 to 8 wins? Is it down to 4 to 3? That's the battle. But remember, you've got a loud, feisty offensive coordinator who I think is coming at the right time, right? Of course, Chip Kelly was going to call plays. Nothing was ever going to change that. Well, in a day and age where you've got so much turnover, so much to try and implement, a lot of the youth offensively is not going to play, right? It's not a team that's filled with freshmen, sophomores. No, you've got Sturdivant, who's been around college football, right? You've got Titus Mokiao-Atimalala, who's been around college football. These guys have been around since spring, large in part. Garbers has been in the UCLA system, learned a new system now with Eric Bieniemy in the West Coast offense, which gives him more control. And it's easier doing that with the redshirt senior quarterback than it would have been with the true freshman, a true sophomore, a Garbers who hadn't been through the fight last year to earn his spot through 1, 2, 3 quarterback battles within an individual year, with let alone the injuries and poor, protection, pass protection against the blitz last year, and a rigidly stubborn coach that wouldn't give him a second opportunity. And I was hard to do that too as well. but still, he's been through it all. So when it comes to a guy who can be a vocal leader, a loud head coach who, if you go back to April in the LA Times article, you had the quote of Bieniemy screaming at his team, if you don't know the snap count, get off the bleeping field, right? Because we know Bieniemy is going to make sure the players know what's going on. And this is a team last year that when you look at UCLA overall, I think they're close to a top 30 overall offense in the country. Then when you looked at passing numbers, UCLA fell back down to the 60th mark in the country. You take out the game against North Carolina Central because Dante Moore literally in the first play of the game threw a 70-yard pass to a wide open receiver. Then they go back down to 60, mid-60s. If you look at numbers when it comes to some of the better total offenses, but a team overall offense passing-wise, and yes, the Bruins are a bit more balanced when it came to the rushing attack and passing, but what plagued them last year was the inability to throw the football and simple passing schemes. Now, UCLA brings back the fullback, right? That's not a staple. It's not something you're going to see in any Chip Kelly offense. You're going to see a couple of tight ends. And while UCLA did make tight ends an advantage, despite having, not the biggest of household names, they don't have the Brock Bowers of the world, but they made what they had work and turned walk-ons into scholarship guys and very productive outputs from tight ends, which this year is a thin position because of injuries and graduation and what may have you, even though Matavao is primed for a breakout year, award watch list for the John Mackey Award. Okay, so you look at a team that's bringing back its starting quarterback, a running back, another running back in the transfer portal, stacked at the running back position where if Atkins can be healthy, Anthony Atkins, coming from the service academy schools, knowing how to run the triple option, could be a good fullback option if he's ready to go. He's been battling some injuries. UCLA piling up on the amount of running backs that they can have for just running back depth and fullback depth, and just to make something new happen. Because UCLA will lean a little more this year with a passing threat than they have in years past. Now, you're not going to have Patrick Mahomes back there firing passes, 1 foot flicking it to the end zone 70 yards on a dime, or no-look passes or whatever may have you. But a veteran quarterback at the right time with a team that is learning a new complicated scheme. And what did Logan Loya say best? It's a buffet. Everybody's going to feast. So this is a team ready to beat you with any weapon they have. A quarterback who, if kept upright, I believe will make so many better decisions than what Dante Moore did last year when he had the pick six bug. Pick six again and again against, all the interceptions, all the turnovers between the Washington State game, between the Oregon State, between Utah, all the interceptions and the bugs UCLA couldn't get through. That hopefully is not a thing for a quarterback that could complete close to 65, 70% of his passes and had 11 touchdown to 3 interception ratio in limited time against tougher opponents and really charge the Bruins up. The same reception that Deshaun Foster got as the head coach being announced to the UCLA football team earlier this year after the quick hiring weekends was what Ethan Garbers is the leader in charge of this team as a player, as a quarterback, with what Eric Bieniemy can use. So a team that's going to have similar depth, hopefully more stability and a bit more depth on the offensive line with, while there have been some injuries, maybe that's allowed guys to get more reps and provide backups key opportunities to understand the schemes. And now UCLA doesn't have to rely on just 4 to 5 guys and completely crumble if there's any injury in the offensive line. That's not what it looks like this year, but they are a key to success for this UCLA team. So you've got a coach that's coached at the highest levels. If he can get any sort of protection, which Eric Bieniemy did not get for his quarterback last year at the Commanders, any sort of protection, and he'll have to be more creative. He's not facing NFL pass rushers, but there are going to be your elite pass rushers coming out, right? UCLA faced one at Utah last year. A couple years ago, there was one at USC. UCLA had one of their own in Lot 2. You're going to face those stout defenses. But then you got a team that comes in with what would have been the 5th best offense in the conference, which makes you wonder, what was the rest of these teams doing offensively that UCLA in a down year in Chip Kelly's era could have been one of the better offenses in the Big Ten? We'll discuss, debate, and talk more about it next on Locked On UCLA. I'm thinking you should get some tickets to some games coming up, right? Because Major League Baseball, summer, dog days of August, the teams, they need your support because pennant races, playoff races are heating up. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball where the tickets, you can get them faster. And the prices actually go down close to the first pitch. Let's tell you why we should use Gametime. Well, one, panoramic views to see where you're looking to sit. And you're going to sit in some older ballparks where you don't exactly know if there's a foul pole, if there's breaks, if there's some sort of weird seating, or we're going to go venture with the UCLA football team across the country to these new football venues. Well, they've got panoramic viewing. Also, all-in pricing, toggle a feature that shows the feature up front, that tells you the price. You don't have to worry about, am I being shot? No, they're not going to hide it. They're going to tell you. Toggle the feature specifically for all-in pricing, and you know what you're going to pay. Just take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download today. Gametime. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I'm going to be frank with you as we start segment 2 of the Locked On UCLA podcast. As much as the numbers do show that UCLA would have been a fifth best offense in the conference, which now is close to 20 teams, I think UCLA would have been bullied on the line of scrimmage, a freshman quarterback. I just think it would have been a lot to overcome, despite UCLA's own stout Big Ten-like defense to bring it in. UCLA's offense, I think, still would have suffered and struggled, right? Because the big debate this year, coming in over recent years, are you, right? It's been, the West Coast has been slept on in almost every sport. Most of the best athletes are going to the South. They're going to the SEC. They're going to where it was Texas and Oklahoma. They're now SEC. They're going Midwest, whether Michigan's doing some show cause nonsense, whatever, right? They've been leaving California, or even if they're staying on the California side, the Pacific Northwest, staying west in Arizona, it's been a completely slept on, now dead basically conference in the Pac-12, where a lot of it was, hey, stay up, look at these games, we're talented. And then it came down to, you know what? Actually, the Big Ten was one of the biggest, baddest, best deep conferences that there is. And, well, I guess we can't deny it, even though you might talk about Michigan cheating, but they made it to the playoff, won the championship last year. Okay, that's not the debate we're having. It's the overall depth, top to bottom of the conference, where could UCLA feast on those teams and at some point get good enough to beat an Ohio State, a Michigan, what Oregon strives to be in year one of the Big Ten, what USC wishes they could be in year one of the Big Ten, what Washington is trying to restore after the brief but very great Michael Penix Jr. era at Washington under their very short but super successful Kalen DeBoer coaching tenure. Okay, now UCLA, what they're going to have to prove to be an 8-win team is that they can go beat these teams at home like Iowa, like Minnesota, that they can go on the road and knock off in Nebraska in a year where Nebraska was plagued by quarterback issues, inability to win close games, but UCLA is going to play in front of a rabid fan base where if Nebraska is in it with a schedule that could find themselves down the stretch competing for a college football playoff spot, UCLA is good enough to go pull off an upset on the road at one of these teams. To be a good 8 to 9 win team, UCLA is going to have to compete and do that this year, right? So the battle is, can UCLA go feast on these mediocre programs in the Big Ten that have not been good at years? And then the finger gets pointed right back at UCLA. Gets pointed right back. What have you done against mediocre talent? And then the question and the debate would turn into, the Pac-12 is a lot deeper. True, as it certainly was in 2023, arguably the same in 2022. Some of the best, most deep, entertaining years of quarterback play and overall team play in the Pac-12 before it unceremoniously came to an end. But now UCLA has to turn the page and turn into a team with Eric Bieniemy that can light up the scoreboard. It's not going to look like how it did with Chip Kelly, where they could go down the field, boom, boom, score some points, some big breakout points. While I think speed will be a bit of an emphasis, we will see, it's obvious, you're going to see more of a pro style. And I think that certainly fits Ethan Garbers' ability, using the IQ not needing to be more dual threat, needing to run, be a DTR, right? Dante Moore wasn't that. Ethan Garbers really isn't that, but he can tuck it and run. You need that guy to outsmart the opposition, a offensive coordinator who is extremely intelligent and has found ways to be successful in different roles. And why is everybody across the country saying he was one of the best hires in the country in terms of as an assistant coach or an offensive coordinator? We've almost forgotten the hype that Bieniemy is bringing with a veteran install, not a sophomore quarterback. You're not having to install a true freshman quarterback. You've got guys sitting there in backup roles that are what is quite frankly a wide open backup quarterback role, fighting to be behind Ethan Garbers. Even though it seems like it should be Justin Martin, for right now, there's a lot of youth in that room, Martin being the veteran of the guys who are just trailing Garbers as QB1. That's okay. But this is the right time and the right year for a UCLA team to get ready, go pound against Hawaii. Indiana's undergoing QB, undergoing coaching changes. That would hopefully be a good matchup for UCLA to showcase a little bit of fireworks. And then LSU, a team who in recent years has been liable to give up a lot of points, right, as under an LSU team. They've been liable. They've been, they're undergoing a defensive coordinator change. Not because theirs got poached like UCLA did, but because they wanted to change things up. Then it looks like, hey, where are these other matchups going to go? And we'll truly find out if the Big Ten is as deep as it is defensively, top to bottom, right? Top to bottom. And that UCLA-Iowa game will be so intriguing, I think, on a short week. Friday night in the Rose Bowl, there will be an influx of Iowa fans coming in to cheer on their Hawkeyes against the UCLA fan base that I will question if will show up on a Friday night to cheer on a UCLA team against Iowa. Well, that's high school football night on a Friday night, but whole different thing. That is where UCLA has an opportunity. You're telling me a quarterback that's got veteran savvy, UCLA only lost one of the games that he started, didn't lose any game that he completed. If Ethan Garbers stayed in the whole game, this is a caveat because they were going to lose the Arizona game when he got knocked out, despite a small window of a comeback. Every game Garbers was able to complete, UCLA actually won. And that's something that's forgotten. And while Garbers isn't the eye-popping ESPN top 100 talents, you've got a capable tailbacks, very capable fullbacks, whoever UCLA wants to put in there, whether Atkins is ready to go as fullback number one, whether they want to get a bowling ball style back, however it rolls, UCLA has sneaky good depth offensively. In the receiver room, all right, they got some youth. They got the talent that can go deep. They got the guys that can go underneath in the slot. They got the tight end that can go make a big play, 10 yards, 15 yards per catch. Now, do they have somebody behind Matzaval? We'll see how it actually plays out because the rest of that is up for grabs. If the offensive line can hold up against the big physical fronts like it really couldn't last year or against any type of blitz, then UCLA will mightily struggle this year, and they're going to go 3-9. But from all accounts, open practices, Garbers look sharp. Installs look a lot better. Not perfect. They're not going to be perfect in the middle of August when the season starts 2 weeks, right? And this is earlier because normally the season starts like September 3rd, 4th, 5th, right? Or, the Labor Day weekend. This is an opportunity for UCLA to prove, and for all these Pac-12 turned Big Ten teams, or Big 12 or ACC, it was slept on the whole time. Now, there's going to be teams that will suffer great travesties in the transition, beyond just the Washington State, Oregon State being left in the dust in the Pac-12, unless they move to a different conference. That has not happened yet. But can Eric Bieniemy and Ethan Garbers carry? They're going to have to. The sharp-witted, quick-witted offensive coordinator who is demanding discipline. That's one of Deshaun Foster's pillars, a quarterback that wants to be the vocal leader, that has been dying for his chance. And everybody there that is equally as talented, if not better, than just about every team's offensive front across the conference. Okay, yeah, they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to go put up 40 a game. But I think they can lead teams and they can find ways to beat teams they shouldn't into a bowling season, hopefully. Okay? And some of that's going to be helped out by the student section. What I mean, we'll talk about it next on Locked On UCLA. Well, the recent news coming out of UCLA camp is the announcement from UCLA Athletics that they messed with the Rose Bowl a little bit. Are there going to be tarps? No, there shouldn't be tarps because I think the Rose Bowl will be filled. The question is with how many UCLA fans. I hope more than the visiting fans. But the real fun story is the one that they're going to have the standing section only, safe standing areas, which apparently, if you're a big soccer fan, big football fan, is probably a newer thing that might start becoming a big thing. Hopefully, you would think in American sports, because a lot of the American sports fans, we're not as passionate sitting there singing like the rest of the world is singing when it comes to soccer matches or everything. But the announcement is they built safe standing areas, a concept made popular in soccer-specific stadiums where the UCLA student section, students only, has been expanded just to wiggle around the Rose Bowl and sit right behind the opponent's bench, according to the UCLA press release about how they've messed around with the Rose Bowl. And heck, they keep playing LAFC, LA Galaxy in the Rose Bowl on the 4th of July. That might be something. I wanted the World Cup to be there in 2026, only for it to go to SoFi. Whatever. The Rose Bowl is an iconic venue. That seems like a fun idea. And the safe standing room only, of course, too old, not cool enough, not young enough, not student enough to get in there. But we hope that the students can travel. And heck, if it's leaking out to right behind just the opponent's bench, this is what they said. One, the Rose Bowl will be one of the first college football stadiums to implement safe standing sections, right? So much of recent years and times in cheering on teams have been big upsets, racing onto the field, and then going crazy with the fans, largely the students, rushing the field, putting people at harm, putting big fines in place, and wanting security to get tighter to avoid that. Now, safe standing sections, I wonder how that's going to play a role. That's not really been a problem with UCLA or West Coast teams necessarily, but it's going to have UCLA being the only Big Ten team to have students sitting directly behind the opponent's bench, okay? And the funny thing about football is right behind the bench, right at like the 50-yard line, is not exactly the most ideal seating if you're a football fan, right? That's not the best. You're going to sit a lot. But the idea is they want the students to go sit there, talk their trash, yap it up, and get into the minds of the opposition, right? It is basically go there and act like a small fool, but respectful enough that you drive them mad in what should be, even though people are still questioning how many fans will show up in the Rose Bowl this year, what should be a more fun year with fans in the stadium. The buzz can be the annoyances of, all right, the students getting into the opposition's head. And what's funny for me is I'm wondering, as fun as the Big Ten road games will be, the Ohio States, the Michigans, this year the Penn States, UCLA fans already know if they went in the recent decade how fun Nebraska is. Why haven't more teams done this? Why haven't they done this more? And this is what the Den president, Nick Brown, said. I'm incredibly excited for the addition of safe standing areas for this upcoming football season. Having students directly behind the opposing team's bench will empower the Den's most passionate students to make their voices heard. I can't wait to be back at the Rose Bowl to bring the energy and see the Bruins in action. So it's already the sections 6 through 10 that are student sections. Now they literally made a line that's going to be around the Rose Bowl, ringing into and trickling into right behind the bench. So that should be fun. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I wonder how many people are going to try and sneak into that section. I wonder what's the code? How do you get into that spot? Is it first come, first serve? By a brief read, it doesn't look like that's something, but the safe standing areas are the first 7 rows in these certain sections 2 through 6 specifically, right? So initially, the old school 6 through 10 sections, student section, expanded, and I believe they've already discussed this, but now it's actually happened, and they're really putting into words and to pictures what this is going to look like. Sections 2 through 6, safe standing areas. It's right behind the opponent's bench. They'll be closer to the action like never before. Although football, you like to be raised up a little bit about the 50-yard line. And the first 7 rows. So if you got sections 2 through 6, that's about 5 sections, 7 rows. That's a good 35 rows of yapping, hopefully directed right at the opposition's bench. Okay, just All right, come in here. Let's go, Dylan Gabriel. Should have come to UCLA. All right, kid, let's go. Indiana, man, you ain't got a chance. All right, we're going to kick your butt in basketball. All right, boom, 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 boom. What's else? Iowa, you're going to score on offense. All right, boom, 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 boom. Let's see what's the next one. Minnesota, PJ, you should have come to UCLA. Oh, we spurned you. Sorry. Boom, 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 boom. USC. Oh, that speaks for itself. What's the next one? Boom, boom, off the top of my head. Boom. Oh, Fresno State. Yeah, your dog days are over. Boom, 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 boom. Bam. This off the top of my head. Rapid fire. Easy. Pick it up. They're going to have, if you are not really understanding how the student section work, it's not the most behaved, best behaved areas of all time, but they're trying to lean into it and kind of negate the chatter of, oh, we're 45 minutes away, or oh, it takes so long. No. Get off your frat and your sorority party, stay there for 4 quarters, and get into the opposition's mind. All right. And make sure you make the quarterback, the coach's life just an annoying, living hellscape of sorts for about 60 minutes of football time. Okay. So that should be fun. It'll be unique to see something that affects the seating, something that affects the attendance that doesn't involve a tarp. I'm excited to see how it plays out with the UCLA and Rose Bowl Stadium partnership to make this happen. And it's cool. And I wonder if that's how they will slowly start to make things go for other games like the Rose Bowl game, big events, how that's going to affect in future games, future years in the use of the facility. But for now, we get excited. And this is what the student section should always start with. An 8 clap, which is how we're ending the show. All right, hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.